Many are eager to close the book on 2021, but what does 2022 bring? From continuing struggles with the pandemic to new arguments over redistricting maps as we head into what will surely be a dramatic set of midterm elections. We look back briefly and ahead hopefully. Today is Sunday, January 2nd, 2022, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, and welcome to Flashpoint. Devin is off today. Last year at this time, we were all wondering whether 2021 knew that it was supposed to be different from 2020. But as we have so painfully learned, the new year is under no obligation to break the cycles of the last 12 months, especially if we, following the well-worn definition of insanity, keep doing the same things over and over again, but expect different results. We do know that a number of things are going to change in the new year, among them the districts in which we vote. We've known we're losing a congressional seat, which makes the reshuffling even more acute. Now these maps are certainly headed for a series of legal challenges, but candidates have to start making decisions now about where to run and perhaps even where to live. And as we head toward what will certainly be another very volatile election season, is there anyone on or off the ballot who can unite Americans in general, and Michiganders in particular, with a sense of purpose and direction? Or is that asking way too much of 2022? That's just one of the questions we'll ask today on Flashpoint. Headlining our look back and forward, our guests from each side of the aisle this morning, Republican Congressman Tim Walberg of the 7th District and Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who represents the 12th. It's great to see both of you, and Happy New Year. And since I mentioned your districts, let me start right there. And Congresswoman, yours is changing, and as we mentioned a few moments ago, some members of Congress are going to have to move, and you're one of these. Did you see this coming? And I guess the first question that popped in my head is, are you upset by this?
Look, it was a nonpartisan commission. People of Michigan voted for this to be the way that we do the maps, and I respect the wish of the Michigan people. If you were watching this process, which was more than a year, it was clear that Dearborn was likely to be in a Detroit district, and the rest of my district would stay together in some form, and that's exactly what happened. So I respect the Voting Rights Act. I believe in representation, so I'm still going to be representing the majority of the people I currently represent, picking up a few of the people that Tim represents. But Tim and I have already talked, and we're going to work together to serve the people this next year that he represents, that I'll then take over. And look, it's going to be hard to move when you lived in a home with the man that you loved for 30 years, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, your family name is on so many things in Dearborn as well. Congressman, other than changing your lucky number from 7 to 5 now, your district goes from 7 to 5. You get to stay pretty much put, and now will represent most of southern Michigan there. What are your impressions of the new map?
Well, it is what it is. I'm not unfamiliar with the portion I'll be getting. Calhoun County, I represented my first 2 terms in office before getting Monroe County. And so I'll be going now from Lake Erie to Lake Michigan. Being a supporter and a pusher for Great Lakes issues, that gives me a touch on both sides of the state, both lakes, representing the border counties along Indiana and Ohio, now add Illinois to that. So it'll be an interesting district. Fred Upton has been my friend, and I'm sure he hates to lose that portion of his district as well. But it'll be what it is, and I look forward to the opportunity of course, assuming that they elect me to this next term of office. But we've gone through redistricting before. We've learned from John Dingell used to tell me, never give away a friend. And so we will not give away a friend of our old district, get it back a friend from our past district, and get portions of new district as well.
Yeah, you both kind of mentioned this, Congressman. I'll stay with you on this. Do you feel there's going to be a lot more interaction amongst your colleagues here as these districts kind of blend? You kind of pick up other parts. Do you feel like it almost encourages working together, some more bipartisanship here?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. We need to work together. in this coming year. And while we'll still have our same districts that we are in right now for this next year, it gives us a chance to start learning about new issues, new concerns, new individuals, and new perceptions that are out there. And maybe, just maybe, Debbie and I can have our wish that there will be some bipartisanship where we can work together. Where we can't, we'll still battle on the issues. But other than that, I think there's a need that we see Michigan as a state that ought to work together, and then the United States as a country that can and must to a greater degree.
Yeah, Congresswoman Dingell, what do you think about not only that, but I see this also could spur even more competition as we see a couple of incumbents are going to run against, and Haley Stevens and Mr. Levin will have to go head-to-head in a district. Now, how do you see this playing out as the midterms approach next year?
I think that Michigan's going to be ground zero in the country for competitive races. It appears that we could have competitive primary in both parties. I wish it wasn't happening in either, because I have good friends in both primaries. Fred Upton and Bill Heisinger may be running against each other, and Haley and Andy Levin. And quite frankly, we will have very competitive congressional seats in a number of those seats. And that's what the Nonpartisan Commission was trying to do. I think it's good that we're up for election every 2 years. I don't always love having to raise the kind of money that you do, but we need to be accountable to the people. And if you're in a representative government where the people have that ability to exercise their right to vote, to participate in a democracy every 2 years, it keeps you in touch with the people. It makes you I mean, I like to be with people, so I'm out and about always. It's my favorite thing to do, but you want to listen and make sure you are representing the people that have elected you to the job.
Yeah. Let me quickly pivot to COVID. We're seeing on Thursday a letter went out from the state superintendent and the head of MDHHS encouraging masks in schools. And also we learned that there could be booster shots being approved in the coming week for kids 12 to 15. With so much happening right now and on all fronts, let me ask both of you. I'll start Congresswoman Dingell. What would you like to see happen in the year ahead from the administration, from the Biden administration, as the COVID response going forward here?
Look, COVID's real. I'm somebody who believes in vaccination. I think people should wear their masks. I wear my mask when I'm outside and when I'm inside. Everybody who's been with me, Tim has seen me, the governor has seen me, I wear my mask. And it's scientific fact that it helps prevent lives. I want to see the administration get more tests out there. Testing is going to be a key component of trying to manage this. I also think we're all going to need that fourth booster. I'm glad that our young people are going to be able to be eligible for the booster. I think the sooner we get that out there, the better. And I think this administration needs to get ahead of, and the reality is we're seeing Israel do it now. We're going to need that fourth booster. Let's make sure we've got the supply and are talking about vaccinations the way we should. Complete vaccination now is 3 shots, and it's probably quickly going to be 4.
Congressman, a lot of people feel like we're stuck in 2021, or in 2020. Feels like the same thing. We should be a year down the road. Where do we go from here, in your opinion?
Well, I think ultimately, I'd agree with Debbie that we ought to use the best science, and what we can use that benefit us as individuals, adults, as well as children, we ought to use. But I think science indicates that ought to be the decision of individuals for their best interests. Doctors and patients ought to be consulting on what's the best. With children, we know that they do get sick, but they generally don't die. We know that we've put traumatic experiences on our kids in schools. We've stunted their educational growth in many ways. For no reason that we could scientifically prove. So I would hope that, as the president said last week, it'll not be a federal solution. I'm glad he finally came to that. That was the past administration's position, that the states will take charge of it, do the best that they can for the individual school settings, but more importantly than anything, get it back to as normal as possible. Yeah. We know we're going to have this virus around in various forms, probably forever, like the flu. We know that we're better prepared than before. We know that the vaccines do work. We know that there'll be changes needed there. But if we continue to cloister ourselves off and destroy our economy, destroy our educational opportunities, we're going to have greater problems down the road.
Yeah. Congressman, Congresswoman, thank you so very much. I'm going to leave it there. And best wishes to you and as things change as we get into the new year. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
And we're right back on Flashpoint.
Gardner White is kicking off the new year with a bang. Save up to $800 on Detroit's largest selection of Serta mattresses. In stock and ready for free same-day delivery. Plus 0% financing up to 60 months. Plus free TV, free power base, free MasterCard. Queen or King just $6.99 with a free power base. Serta Perfect Sleeper $4.99. Any size Serta $99. The New Year mattress sale at Gardner White, Detroit's #1 mattress store.
Wallside's not one to brag until today. Wallside's the only window company celebrating its 78th year, which means an extra $78 off the price of every window. It's all part of this exclusive offer. Every second window free, plus an extra $78 off every window when you pay cash. Or take 5 years, no interest. You can afford to do the whole house and brag about your new Wallside windows. Schedule your safe at home or virtual estimate at wallside.com.
I'm involved in the CDL program here, a new beginning to be able to start my own business. A friend of mine called me. He said, Sam, I know what we can do. We could get into the car hauling business, but we got to get our Class A license. That was it. This is the calling. You got to go to the school. It was hard, but we had instructors that didn't want to see you fail. And today I'm sitting here, a successful CDL holder.
Welcome back. Let's say Happy New Year to our roundtable. Nolan Finley is the Detroit News editorial page editor. Portia Roberson is CEO of Focus Hope, and before that with the City of Detroit Civil Rights Department. From Mitchell Research and Communications, Steve Mitchell is with us, as well as Jill Alper of Alper Strategies. Guys, let's talk redistricting. I just think this is so fascinating, and I keep thinking about what someone used to say about contracts. If both sides are a little upset, then it's probably a fair deal, and I've heard criticism a little bit on both sides. Jill, let me start with you. Is this a fair new map?
Well, by all accounts, the districts have been carved up in a pretty fair way, pretty even-handed way. It was even recognized by the New York Times. Doesn't mean it's perfect, though. There have certainly been concerns registered, some by the right and some by the African-American community in Detroit. So these discussions will probably continue, and the plan will be litigated. But by all accounts, you look at the districts up and down, from the top of the ticket to the bottom, and they're much more equitable and fair than they were 10 years ago when drawn by Republican politicians.
Nolan, what stands out to you when you saw this map?
Well, as I write in today's column, it's a mess. And speaking of the maps drawn 10 years ago by Republicans, they produced at the end of the decade a 7-7 congressional district and almost even representation in the House and Senate. I would say that's not bad. I don't think you're going to have as even an outcome with this one, but these maps are a mess. I don't think they're going to stand up to a voter rights amendment or Voter Rights Act challenge. It certainly dilutes African-American influence. You'll end up with fewer seats held by black representatives. You may end up with a congressional district without an African-American representative, given the way Brenda Lawrence's new district is drawn. It splits community of interest. For example, Midland, which is still dealing with the aftermath of last year's dam collapse and flooding, those communities now are split into 2 different districts. If that's not a community of interest, I don't know what is.
Yeah, legal challenges for sure have been talked about coming. Portia, that was, Nolan kind of hit on it, one of the biggest criticisms I've heard is that it disenfranchises Detroit voters. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. And unfortunately, I mean, when I looked at the photo in one of the papers of the congressional representation that there is now, and you see only Brenda Lawrence, and you know she also might lose out based upon this new drawing, it's unfortunate. I mean, I think there are going to be quite a few challenges around the district as the way they're drawn right now. And then you see in outside districts, people having to move, people challenging other good representatives, and there are going to be a lot of challenges within our own party in terms of who gets what seat and who has to move to try to create or keep their seat. So I think there's a lot more to come on this. I don't think we're done at this point.
Steve, if this does hold after legal challenges, if we get to the midterms, we've already seen that Levin and Stevens would end up running against each other. What do you see happening here in the midterms?
Well, first of all, let me comment on the maps. I agree with Nolan. I think these maps are not good. I think that the earlier versions did. Back in the 1980s, we had what was known as the APOL standards, named after Bernie Apol. And they kept communities the same. They would try to fit Livonia, for instance, with about 90,000, 100,000 residents, would be one district. Instead, Midland's broken up, Ann Arbor's broken up into 4 districts. So I don't like these. Now, as you look towards the midterms, the one thing we know about all midterm elections, except for 2 in the last 75 years, the party in the White House does very poorly. I suspect that's going to be the case with President Biden's current national approval rate, according to Real Clear Politics, at 43%. I think this is going to be a very challenging year for Democrats and a very good year for Republicans.
Yeah. Nolan, have you had any thought? I mean, I think one of the more exciting things that I've seen so far is the number of new candidates that might emerge, again, if all of this holds. Of the names you've seen, do they surprise you, or what do you think so far of that?
No, I think you're right. I think it provides opportunities for some new candidates and for some old candidates to revive. I don't understand why Levin isn't moving to the new 10th district where there is no incumbent. I think there's a bit of arrogance in his part to stay and run against Haley Stevens. I think they risk giving that district to Republicans. I'm looking at the 9th district, Dale Kildee's district, which is now drawn a little less Democratic than it was, and Bill Schuette's eyeing that. Schuette used to represent portions of that district. He could prevail there. The disappointment for me is putting Fred Upton and Bill Huizenga in the same district in out west. Upton's been a force for moderation and bipartisanship, and it'll be tough for him to get through that primary because of that. And one of the goals here was to use this process to lessen the hard partisanship and the extremes. I think it does just the opposite. You look at Debbie Dingell being drawn out of downriver and now wholly into Ann Arbor and Washington County. I think it's going to be harder for her to maintain sort of that bipartisan stance she has been taking.
Hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick time out and come back and talk about where we stand with the coronavirus and the way things are moving toward the new year, and get your thoughts on what you hope to see in 2022. We're right back on Flashpoint.
Local 4 News Today is local. We're your neighbors, so your world is our world, and it can change while you're sleeping. When you wake up, you need to know. That's why Local 4 News Today starts every morning with the weather, traffic, and the most reliable information when world-changing news breaks. Start your day informed. Facts first, because the more you know, the safer you can be. That's why Local 4 News Today is here for you.
Gardner White is kicking off the new year with a bang. Save on Detroit's largest selection of Tempur-Pedic mattresses. In stock with free same-day delivery. Plus, save with 0% financing for 60 months. That's as low as $1 a day. Plus, free 50-inch TVs, free $300 MasterCards. And every Tempur-Pedic comes with our low price guarantee. The New Year mattress sale at Gardner White, Michigan's only elite Tempur-Pedic dealer.
A progressive jackpot that grows with every play. That's what makes Fast Cash from the Michigan Lottery such a thrilling game. The progressive jackpot keeps building and building and building until jackpot. Fast Cash. The fun keeps building.
Local news is more important than ever. Get the very latest on developments in Metro Detroit on Local 4 News first at 4, then on Inside Edition.
He fathered 24 children, America's top sperm donor. Now, for the first time, he's meeting his grandkids.
I can't wait to take them to Disneyland.
Then, fitness guru Jillian Michaels, how to stay fit for the upcoming new year.
Efficient, easy, no equipment needed.
Inside Edition, following Local 4 News first at 4, Monday.
Well, we have to
Bring
talk
it
about...
back.
And we're back. We do have to talk about the coronavirus, considering the end of 2021 feels a heck of a lot like the end of 2020, which we thought was going to change our lives, and it feels like we're stuck at ground zero. But Jill, I want to start with you. A couple of things, and for everybody, a couple of news items that popped on Thursday. One was a letter that from the state superintendent and the head of MDHHS was advising that masks should be worn by all students in schools. And also we're hearing that a booster could be on the way to teenagers ages 12 to 15. So positive step in that direction for sure. Jill, what would you like to see going forward, either from the state government or the federal government, in our response, our COVID response here?
Well, I think that, first of all, just in general, leaders saying that wearing a mask is not a political statement, and coming down on the side of science, doing what we need to do to eradicate this thing for once and for all would be a very good start.
Steve, as we hear about the letter from the state, a department of the state, the governor has kicked this to the local level consistently. Do you think that's going to hold any water as school districts again meet and decide on what to do now?
I think it's a very difficult issue. Nolan, I think last week wrote an outstanding column regarding this, and I agree with him. We're just going to have to learn to live with this. Enough people are now vaccinated. Those who are unvaccinated will continue to be so, but I think we have to adapt to this and move forward in our lives. And so, you know, these decisions to mask or not mask, vax or not vax, it seems to me, as much as I would personally like to see everybody vaccinated, I've had my 2 shots and a booster. I also maintain the right of individuals not to do so if they don't want to. It's a thorny issue. The governor was provided us with some of the most stringent and strictest regulations back in 2020. She's now opted not to do that. I suspect looking more at political science and science, because these types of mandates, both vaccines and mask mandates, are very unpopular with a large segment of voters.
I'm glad you brought up Nolan's column. I want to talk to him about that. But first, Portia, I want to ask you, when it comes to mandates, the surge that we've seen, even though so many are vaccinated, we've seen all these breakthrough cases. Is that proof that mandates really aren't the answer here?
Well, I think, you know, for me, the consideration is that when you enforce a mandate, you're asking people to get vaccinated, which people haven't done because somehow this has become more politicized than it ever should have been. This is about science. This is about health and safety of, you know, your brother, your sister, whatever. The issue for me is that without the mandates, you end up flooding hospital systems with those who refuse to get vaccinated. And then those of us who are vaccinated and boosted, if we have an emergency issue, there really is no room for us at the hospital. So I think it's larger than just the freedom to make that decision. If the freedom to make the decision not to get vaccinated, if you were going to stay in the house and not necessarily infect anyone else, if you were going to keep yourself away from everybody else, you weren't going to go to the hospital if in fact you needed the hospital, and you weren't going to overwhelm the hospital systems for those of us who've chosen to do this. I don't choose to do it just for me. I choose to do it for everybody else that might be around me. And so, you know, that's, I guess, my thought about mandates, is that if we, you know, I really had hoped that I really thought that at this point we'd be so much farther along, because I couldn't have imagined last year this time that once we got a vaccine, so many people would make it a political issue and not get vaccinated. I don't understand it.
Let me quickly say on that note that it's not just this idea of conservative Republicans. The city of Detroit has only a 35% vaccination rate. One of the largest groups opposing this is African Americans.
I am not talking to conservative Republicans. Believe me, this is not, again, a political issue for me. This is black folks, white folks, everybody that does not choose to get vaccinated and then overwhelms hospital systems across this country. Nurses and doctors are begging us to get vaccinated so that they aren't seeing people dying without their relatives being there. And I don't understand the idea that people want to put not only themselves at risk, but everybody that they love at risk. That's the part I do not understand, and I don't think I ever will.
And as we see now, one of the treatments, the monoclonal antibody treatment, is now just in such short supply, they have to pick and choose who gets it. Nolan, you did write about this, and because Omicron is simply beating back all of our defenses right now, your thought was that instead of investing in stopping it, we should be investing in treating it, correct?
No, we shouldn't be invested in both. And I would agree with Steve. I've talked to a lot of people who aren't vaccinated, and they have a lot of reasons beyond politics for it. I've got vaccinated early and often. I believe in vaccinations, and what we're seeing now with the Omicron strain here is that vaccinations are not preventing it. People who are vaccinated are getting the virus and spreading the virus, but they're not getting as sick, and they're generally not dying. And that's a very hopeful thing.
Yeah.
I think the Biden administration, in his acknowledgement last week, the president acknowledged he should have ordered more tests. I think they've been negligent, and their sole focus on 100% vaccinations have been negligent in the preventive measures. Should have ordered up more tests when the scientists recommended it back in October, and they should have ramped up, and still should be ramping up, production of these new pills that reduce the mortality rate by 95%. And as you mentioned, the monoclonal treatments that aren't widespread available in Michigan. There's no excuse for that, given the trillions of dollars we spent in the name of COVID relief, that we don't have the supplies and the treatments available now to save lives. That is unconscionable.
Yeah, I got to leave it there, guys. What can I tell you? Thanks again, and Happy New Year. I hope it's a bright one for all of us. And thanks for joining us this morning on Flashpoint. Devin will be back next Sunday.